Hello, Kelly.
All that's gone with my brand
Hi.
new cooling fan. From the first night you.
Hey, John.
I was kind of bummed I couldn't go Saturday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
I wish I had known that they were going to be outside. I would have dressed appropriately, but I'm just getting over being sick.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be outside freezing for an hour. There's no way. But I was really disappointed because it sounded like it was going to be a really good symposium. But John was able to go, and so was Carolyn, which was great.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm anxious to hear about it. Can you see my agenda? Is the agenda showing?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Always have that moment of anxiety about whether or not I've got control of this Zoom thing.
I was supposed to have a conversation today with Red Cross, with Corey. I'm guessing she's up to her neck in alligators with all this stuff going on in Mississippi after those tornadoes hit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'll try tomorrow to get a hold of her and reschedule. I had not heard from her at all today.
Hi, Carolyn. Hello, John. Hello, Todd.
Howdy.
Hi, I think is my audio working?
You are working.
Good, okay.
We can hear you. And there's Paul. We're all here. Hey, Paul.
Hello, David. Hi, all.
Hi,
Hey, Kelly. Hey, Todd. Who else? Oh, there's John. Got to see you, John.
howdy.
And Carolyn. All right. So I was the lone holdout.
We were just waiting on you.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right. We're right on time. It's 7:30 by my, or 6:30 by my clock. So let's call our meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. on the 27th of March. This is a meeting of the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee. And we have David Douglas, Paul Yingling, John Bell, and Kelly Hunter present on this call. And Carolyn, our recording secretary, and Mayor Dixon has joined us, and I see Ann Esch there. So let's see here. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes, the agenda, sorry. And do you have any changes that you would like to make to this agenda? None. Without any input from anybody on additions, deletions, or corrections, do we have a second to accept the agenda for tonight's meeting?
Second.
Did we have a?
Yeah, second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Opposed? All right, then our agenda is approved for this evening. Okay, do we have anyone on the call tonight that would like to make any comments?
Oh, and David, forgive me for interjecting.
Yeah, no problem.
The screen we're looking at now, it looks like your email inbox with the packet email open. I didn't know if you wanted to show the actual agenda as you went.
I did want to show the actual agenda. I asked earlier if y'all could see it, and I was told yes. So-
We could, but now it's switched over to your email for some reason.
Oh, goodness, okay. Well, let's try that again. Sure, there we go. How's that?
There we go.
All right.
It's real,
Excellent, excellent. Thank
it's real
you.
big. It's real big on my screen. But maybe it's everybody's else normal size. Because maybe I have it. Let me just see. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll figure this out. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Anyone have any comments for the? None? Okay, then we'll move on to the minutes from our February 27th meeting. I hope everyone has had a chance to review those, and you have any corrections, deletions, or modifications?
None on my part. I was asked to review the highlighted section and I accept the highlighted section, if that was the question.
Okay. Very good. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the February 27th meeting?
I'll
Motion,
move to accept.
okay, and a second. Do I have a second?
Second is Paul.
Okay, Paul. And all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? No, then motion carries. All right, let's get into our right-of-way remediation project. All of the release agreements have gone out. I think they went out a week and a half ago. Some have started coming back signed, and I think that Bo Ayad has had several calls from people wanting clarification on the project itself, scope, those kind of things. But he told me that everyone he has talked to so far has, at the end of their questioning, has said they would sign it and send it in. So he sent us an email with all the people who have signed and sent in the release that we now have in our possession. So at least that's getting kicked off and gives us a little direction. I talked to Adrian. He's been busy with the boundary marking, kind of working that in when he has a chance. He's got other projects going on, so he can't dedicate his full time to marking the boundaries. But I did notice that there are a number of areas around town that have been marked. Has anybody have any other comments regarding the release agreement or boundary marking, or have you gotten any feedback from people? Have you any reports from anybody? None. Okay. I did ask Adrian once he has finished marking the boundaries if he would give me a prioritized list of what he would like to start working first, and kind of what his rights of way that will have priority for him. He said he would do that, and I think that will help guide us in terms of reaching out to people on those rights of way to contact them and see if we can get their release agreements in hand, signed, if we don't already have them. So I think it's a little early to talk about a door-to-door campaign for getting those releases. I did ask Bo if he would keep me or keep us posted at the end of every week with an updated list of the releases that he has gotten in hand during that week. Have we put anything on social media at this point regarding the release agreement, maps, etc., explaining the project?
No, I fell down on that, David.
Well, I think
I
you're
can-
okay. I think what we had decided is we wanted to do the mailing campaign first,
Mhm.
which has happened. And I think now might be a good time to begin posting the social media aspect, just to make sure that we're covering as many of the channels as possible and communicating with people.
Could I ask you just, what would be our message? What do you see as, what do we, should I start with, you know, releases are starting to come in, or just that this mailing has gone out, or have you seen, if you've noticed, trees marked around the, you know, I'm just trying, what?
Well,
do you have
first of
any
all, I
idea?
think that we presume that perhaps there are people out there who, you know, maybe they've gotten the mail, but maybe some people tossed it in the trash. You know, I don't know. But so first of all, I would start with, you know, there's been a mailing. You should have received it if you're on a right of way. Obviously, people who are not bordering a right of way did not receive the release. So we don't want to sort of put it out there that, hey, you should have gotten it. The message would be you should have gotten it by now if you're on a right of way. You know, give them a little update on the, or, you know, you could post the letter, the cover letter that went out, which essentially explains the project. You could say that, you know, we have begun the phase of marking the rights of way with a red ribbon tied on trees to serve as sort of a rough boundary.
Okay, is there just one color of ribbons out there, red?
As far as I know, I did not see anything other than red.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
and then just, you know, encourage people, if they have gotten the mailing, please, you know, if they have any questions, they can call town hall. But we really would like to get those in. So
I'm sorry, if they have questions, call Paul,
town hall.
town hall.
Yeah,
Sorry, Paul.
I think
Yeah, my phone might get a little busy, but
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Paul-
Bo has
Paul-
been, I think Bo has been fielding the calls so
Yes.
far.
Okay, and, yeah, okay, you know, one thing, if they're on a right of way, that's a little bit confusing, because like our cabin is adjacent to, I mean, I think there's a little tiny bit of right of way maybe between Belvedere and our cabin, but I don't think we got a letter. We wouldn't have gotten a letter, I don't think.
I'm not familiar with your, you know, your property.
Yes, you
Um,
are. You've been
Well, I mean,
there.
yeah, I know your house, but I don't know your property boundaries or what's.
Oh, okay,
I'm not, you know, intimately familiar with your
Right.
property, so I can't
Okay.
speak to the issue of.
I'm just
Um,
wondering if, I just don't want to cause confusion, people who, you know, live on the road and go, well, I didn't get a letter, what's the deal? That's all, but,
would the language, a town right of way requiring fire mitigation narrow the field so that
Mhm.
maybe someone says, well, I'm on a right of way, I don't get anything, but if there's no mitigation required, maybe it's literally an empty lot. Or not
Mhm.
those,
Yeah,
but that might reduce the number of questions.
okay, okay, great. I'll work around it. Thank you, David and Paul.
You're welcome. And if you have any questions when you're, you know, preparing to post it, feel free to call me or Paul, and we'll be happy to help you. All right, any other comments regarding the right-of-way project or, questions, concerns?
I'd like to suggest that the same be utilized for I'm happy to continue to contact Heidi with respect to the Wildwood, the newsletter from Church in the Wildwood, and also for the mayor. So we've got, two other avenues and a unified message. Is that sounding reasonable?
Yes, I think so. In any, channels of communication to people that we can get out there, coming from, trusted, credible, reliable sources that people, might give people a little more comfort, I think is a good thing to do. All right. Other questions regarding the right-of-way project? Okay, moving on to our education program update and recommendations. Do we have any recent developments?
Hey, David, I attended a meeting for the coordination meeting for the upcoming April 14th tabletop exercise for evacuation. I don't know if that's a separate issue or if that's something you'd want to talk about now.
Yeah, we can, because I don't have it as a specific item on the agenda, but I think it certainly falls within the category of our education. And so yes, I think, yeah, a good thing to talk about.
Yeah. So the town is sponsoring in collaboration with El Paso County Emergency Management a tabletop exercise to basically hold a series of structured discussions around evacuation, and relatively small group. Chief Murphy will be there, the sheriff, Becky, other town staff, Bo will be there. El Paso County will have some representatives. I think we're trying to get a Red Cross rep, Corey, to come in, and that is April 14th. I believe it's 9. Well, let me not guess. I believe it's 9 a.m. And the goal is just to, in a very scaled back way, discuss the implications of information flow in the event of an evacuation due to wildland fire. And there's a series of inject scenarios. What happens if there's misinformation? What is the structure of how information should flow? How do we correct false or misleading information? And this is kind of a precursor step to a potentially larger exercise to be determined in the future. But before we do anything full scale where we're actually moving people on the ground, the thought was, Chief Murphy and others, that best to do this as a small scale tabletop exercise, learn some lessons, and then apply it to a more fully developed event later on in the year, perhaps.
Paul, where will that be held?
I believe they're trying to get the Sally Bush Center. I don't know if that's reserved yet.
So is this isn't a community meeting. This is just a select few people, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah, mostly, people who were involved in first response. So
Okay.
town manager, staff, El Paso County Emergency Manager, town marshal, deputy, Chief Murphy, of course. Yeah, relatively small number of folks
Mhm.
for the purpose of just discussing the flow of information around an evacuation order.
Okay. And it's specific just to Green Mountain Falls, right? You're not bringing in Manitou or
No.
anything that,
No,
okay.
I mean, the El Paso County emergency manager will be able to speak to that, like what adjacent communities might do or hear. But yeah, this is not meant to be a regional or Ute Pass wide event, really is GMF specific.
So should John and I be there also?
Yeah, David, I guess this runs, we start to run into a question of open meeting stuff, or do we?
Yes, we do. It would have to be posted. I believe, Mayor, you can clarify if I'm wrong, but if we were to have a quorum of our committee there, it would have to be posted as a public meeting.
You could post it as a public meeting or a work session. But
Yeah.
it's best just to get it posted if there's gonna be a quorum.
Yeah.
I can go or not go, but I'm just asking.
Yeah. I mean, I think I did bring up the point at this kind of coordination meeting that because they had like a town fire marshal, and I said, well, we don't have one of those, but we do have a fire mitigation committee, and they were interested in getting representation from the committee. I guess we'd have, either keep that short of a quorum, or as Todd suggests, move it as or post it as a work session. I think there will be 3 or 4 breakout groups. So it might be useful to have a committee member on all or most of the groups if we have availability, and if we can post it as a work session, that might be the best of all worlds.
Well, Paul, why don't you coordinate with Bo
Okay.
about getting a workshop posted for that day so that we're not running afoul of the sunshine law. And that way, if John and Kelly both decide to attend along with you, we don't have any problems.
Okay. And David, does it make sense if I ask him also that we shouldn't publish separate minutes? Our minutes are the results of the meeting, however they're distributed. We're not publishing any separate record of the event.
No, we're not.
Okay. Yeah.
And what did you call this event, Paul?
It is it's titled the Ute Pass Evacuation Tabletop Exercise.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that, Paul?
No, one correction. I think I referred to it as the El Paso County. It's actually the Pikes Peak Region Office of Emergency Management is the sponsoring agency.
Okay.
And again, for our notes, Pike Peaks Region Office of Emergency Management.
Okay. Very good. I guess if there's some sort of learning that occurs or decisions made with respect to evacuation that run counter to what we've already published, we probably should take notes and make amendments so that we don't have a set of documents out there published that are inconsistent with what the Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management might publish. So I would make sure that we're at least keeping an eye on that.
Yes, we'll do.
Okay. Also on recent developments, John, did you attend the FLOCO meeting on Saturday?
Yes, so both Carolyn and I attended that, and that was, they have a very impressive program, in my opinion. So NoFLOCO stands for North Florissant, I guess, community or count. It's not really county. It's but anyway, it's a homeowners association of large lots. Tony and Don, who are the leaders of this NoFLOCO group, have 40 acres themselves. Their neighbors have large lots, and so it's my understanding that there was, just because of the size of their lots, other restrictions that were taking place, they were having trouble, finding and affording fire mitigation. So they started developing a program themselves, which is a neighbor helping neighbors program. And it has really blossomed into something quite impressive, because now they've got 120 people on their email distribution list. It's expanded to other homeowner associations. So there's another one called CME that has more landowners, property owners, but the lots are much smaller. They're, in the 2 to 4, 5 acre size. And so Carolyn and I got to witness their methodology, which is incredibly simple. It's picking up sticks. It's their terrain is quite different. They have rolling hills. They don't have the steep slopes that we do. Their density of trees are much different. So there are some logistical differences, but the methodology is still very applicable to us in terms of getting neighbors to help each other, do something that's otherwise pretty boring and tedious, but build community, picking up sticks. And then they do a lot of on-site burning, not exclusively on-site burning, but a lot of on-site burning. And again, their topology allows that because they have large open spaces where they can create what they call burn snakes. That's burn piles that are only a foot or less high. And where they anticipate building a trail, they'll build a burn snake that ends up doing two things: getting rid of the debris, but also burning a trail into the ground. It kills any future growth there for a long time. And that's their main way of getting rid of the fuel. Their metric is measuring tons of fuel removed. And so they've accomplished a tremendous amount. It's quite impressive. They don't believe in chipping because chipping just adds, fuel back into the forest floor. And they're self-financed. This is private people donating their time and their money to potluck and things like that. People buy their own chainsaws. They showed us examples of people with small chainsaws, small devices. So it's not heavy on equipment. They don't want to pursue a nonprofit status. That's not their goal at all. They want to keep doing what they're doing as they're doing it, which is neighbors contributing their time, contributing, food for potlucks, contributing their own tools. And it's anyway, it's quite effective. And in my mind, it's effective because it's simple, it builds community, and it gives each landowner ownership of mitigation. So there's none of this, there's no conflict of having government oversight, saying what tree needs to be removed and how and when, but they get to take ownership. And I think, that's the source of their successes. And then the other thing, and Carolyn can attest to this, is Don is quite the team builder. He's got, it doesn't take long to realize that he is really great with building a team, getting people to be enthusiastic and jump in. Carolyn, what are your thoughts?
You're muted, Carolyn.
Okay, am I on now? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with everything that John says. I don't know. It's not my place to suggest or anything, but I certainly thought that Don seems to be so generous with his time. And there were two things that I came away with was, first of all, that we want it. He should really just come and attend a meeting, and he can tell you more about the program and get you all fired up, and like John and I were. But I think he would be excellent at a Sally Bush meeting if he could give the same kind of presentation that he gave up there and where we were. He's very entertaining, and he holds your attention. And like John said, he's a real team builder. And I think we've been sort of trying to figure out how to build community in Green Mountain Falls. And that I think this would just be a great start. There are several things that, well, it is different. Don and I talked about this as far as it would be great to have him or go around and because Green Mountain Falls is just a totally different animal from what Floco is. It's we're hilly and we've got narrow roads and we have all kinds of challenges, but I think that it's something worth looking at and trying to figure out how to, it would be a great start to tailor a program for Green Mountain Falls in building community that way and how neighbors could help neighbors. I mean, I'm hope I'm not being too Pollyannish about this, but I would really like to see Dawn come down and address this committee and then the larger community and get food, get a potluck going. It just lots of stuff like that. I think it would be really good. John, do you agree?
I agree. And Don called me Sunday. He wanted, this is, a testament to the kind of guy he is. He was like, well, John, did you get what you wanted out of the meeting? Were you satisfied? What other questions do you have? And so we had a long conversation and I had already talked to his wife, Tony, about the potential of No Floco coming. And he jumped on that without me asking again. He was like, I'd like to come down to Green Mountain Falls. I'd like to bring, 30 guys and we can show you. And he had an excellent suggestion of, if we could pick some private property, a couple of adjoining lots that were very public, that were very central to the, the flow of traffic, that people could see see what happens with the determination of, 30 guys working for 3-4 hours. And I said I would bring it up to this group and that, thanked him for all his generosity and offering and that we would probably take him up on it, but we needed to do some planning to get that before we could get into the specifics.
One thing that after our meeting, it was inside this hall, and then we had to go out. We were only out for about 45 minutes, but we froze our butts off. It was so cold. It was on top of this mountain, and the wind was blowing, and it was really cold. But what they did, and I think this would be so great for education purposes in Green Mountain Falls, was that they had, I think wasn't it 5 topics or areas, and we divided into groups, and we would go to the first group, and then about 10 minutes later, John would blow this bugle horn, and then we'd move on to another one. But what it was like the one that I went to, the first one was all about building these snakes that John talked about. Another one was just on ladder fuels and how to, what they do. And another one was on chainsaws, which I wasn't about to touch with a 10-foot pole, but scared me to death. But these 2 gals have these little chainsaws, and they're very high on chainsaws. I'm not about to recommend that to anybody, but it just, for demonstration purposes, it would be so nice to, oh, I know, another one was Ponderosa pine. He had chunks of Ponderosa pine that showed if the beetles had taken over the tree, or another one where it had rejected the tree. And so it was just all these, you could go around and just see what, and that's the sort of thing you could do up at the Wallace Reserve right now.
Well, I was gonna, this sounds like it was a great meeting. I'm sorry that I was not there to attend. Sounds like a wealth of information was presented. I was curious, even beforehand, if there was some way for us to have a takeaway that we could somehow bring back to Green Mountain Falls. Would there be any sort of cross-pollination of their group with what we're doing. It sounds like there is. It sounds like there's a great opportunity. It sounds like it's something that should be coordinated, but I think it fits very well into what we have been discussing in terms of our education program for our residents. And God knows, I think we need as much education for our residents as we possibly can give. And, you know, we're not going to win over everybody at one time. It's going to be a process of winning over a few people at a time and, you know, getting people on board. But these are certainly the kind of things that, you know, we need to be sponsoring and presenting. And gosh, if they're willing to come and, you know, put on a project like John, you were talking about, which is a demonstration, gosh, that would just be fantastic if we could get some homeowners that, you know, wanted to participate. And I guess kind of get a freebie of some mitigation work, you know. Heck, you may you may want to do that instead of your cusp deal. But
Well, you know, I really liked his vision of doing it someplace where it gets a lot of visibility. You know?
right, yeah,
And I think that's worth brainstorming to find out, you know, look at some properties. Today I was out with the dogs intentionally trying to think through, you know, for our hikes with Greenbox, how this fits in, and, you know, looking over the, you know, the examples that can be shown. And it's, boy, do we have a proliferation of examples. We are just loaded with
yeah,
opportunity.
we are. There's no shortage.
No shortage. I want to add another dimension to some of the things that we learned. So they got, you know, they started very simple, picking up sticks. That's really sort of the basics of Don's process. He said the process is simple. Step one, you put on gloves and boots. Step two, you pick up sticks. Step three, you carry them away. Step four, you repeat. And
A little more,
that's
it's
the
a
way they
little
start.
bit more complicated.
That's the way it started. And then they have since gotten some grant money, and they've done some type 2 fire training. And so they use what's called the Colorado Fire Camp, which occurs in Salida. And it is a part of the training that type 2 wildland firefighters take. Okay, so it's a small increment. And it's the course S130 and S190. And that those courses combined are $600 per person. And I think it's 4 days. But the Salida Colorado Fire Camp, they put you up. So for that, you know, I think a pretty reasonable fee, $600, you get, you know, the 4 days of training plus the housing and I'm presuming some meals. So anyway, they've done that. And I asked one of the guys, Corky, that was there, that had gone through the training. And it's like, okay, what does this mean to you, Corky? Why did you do it? And he said, well, really, it just gives me more confidence. And what I could see from, you know, what people were going through or telling us is, you know, they had a much deeper institutional knowledge of how fire spreads in their area, an understanding of these 1 minute fuels, 10-minute fuels, 1 hour fuels. And that means, you know, the grasses, if there's no other debris on the ground, grasses are basically about a 1 minute fuel. And then you start adding sticks and you get into the 10-minute fuel. And so they've seen experiences where if you've mitigated properly, getting rid of the ladder fuels, and all you've got are grasses, well, the grass fire will just pass right under the tree and just keep going, you know? And so, again, they've got different topology than we do, different lay of the land. But I see areas when I'm out walking where that's still applicable to us.
Absolutely.
And so my point was there, while training was not the way they got started, there is a training component that has definitely given them more institutional knowledge, more confidence, and now this stronger drive to spread the word. So they're almost evangelical, that's not the right word, but they're proselytizing fire mitigation and doing a great job at it. We learned that along with Green Mountain Falls having representation there, Divide was there wanting to try to do the same thing. So they heard about the good word of work that they were doing and was, wanting to mimic it as well with in their neighborhoods.
Well, that's what it's going to take up and down the Ute Pass is that kind of proselytizing and education and getting people on board, getting them to really have enough knowledge to understand what every person can and should be doing. So I think if we could get them, it sounds like they're really willing to come. If we could get them scheduled to come in and either do a demonstration or like Carolyn said, put something on it at Sally Bush, or I think there's a number of avenues of education here that could be very beneficial to our community.
I
One thing
love
that
the
I,
idea that
go ahead, Kelly, what?
I love the idea that it's neighbor helping neighbor. After Waldo Canyon, everybody was hyper aware of each other and wanting to protect each other and be there for each other. I mean, I remember, I think we had shirts that said, "You can't burn community." And, if we can sponsor something like this here and get that interest, that level of interest again before a fire, I just think it would be fabulous. I'm so disappointed I couldn't go Saturday.
Oh, yeah, it was, I am too. I just want to say that, and just thinking ahead, I think that thinking ahead to your booth at Bronx Day and whatever's going on with the green box, I think that your booth at Bronx Day would be a great recruiting, a great way to get people interested in this as well. So I'm just throwing that out. And
I agree.
yeah, and then also whatever happens with what the mayor's forum or the green box, it could really, it's almost like green box we could be doing all this groundwork now or something, and then I don't know. It's just
And
like,
maybe during Greenbox have that demonstration or before, I don't know.
or
But
before, I
Greenbox-
mean,
yeah, a lot of people come to Greenbox, so that might be a great way to do it.
well, I'm just throwing it out. I just, when the weather gets warmer, that's all I ask.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I agree that this is something that's super easy to implement. And, that Don's message over and over is really all you have to do is pick up sticks. It's that simple. And it became infectious because as he told the story, it was only a few neighbors that were, starting out and as they saw what was, the progress that was being made, they more and more joined in because of the simplicity, because of the building community, because of wanting to, understanding the need and the value of the work.
And
So I agree. We can start far sooner than Green Box as soon as the weather gets warmer, and it doesn't have to be big. It can
we
be
could.
very simple, very small, and let it grow.
But David, do you remember when we were talking to Mark about having block ambassadors?
Oh, yeah.
It could start out as little as that.
Yep. John, you want to continue on with the development of that?
I do. Yeah. I think it's a win for the community.
Okay.
I just
good.
love the simplicity.
All right. So if you would, that would be fantastic. Find out what we can do, how we can weave it into Green Box, how we can, what are all the different ways that we can call upon NoFloco's experience, expertise, willingness to help in a variety of different ways. And let's get something formal and calendarized so that we have dates certain and what, what we're going to do on those dates.
Okay,
That would be great. And you can give us a update, I guess, next month when we meet again.
all right.
And then we also had a meeting, again, which I couldn't attend, with the leadership team at Manitou School District 14.
Okay.
Yes, so I got to step in for Kelly on that day. So the school district 14, it was the superintendent all the way down, K through 12 teachers, administrators. And so they gave me 6 minutes, short and sweet. It was an introduction and just let them know what we do and appreciate them thinking about us and helping us communicate as we request. So short and sweet.
Okay.
And then Corey had reached out to me from Red Cross and said she had some ideas that she wanted to discuss with us. And we were going to talk this morning, but I'm guessing she didn't get back to me because of all the stuff going on in Mississippi, but it's still on the schedule. I just need to reschedule with her with what works for her for that communication.
Okay. And well, to add to meetings attended, John and I attended the Teller County wildfire. I can't remember exactly what the meeting name is, but it's the entire Teller County, all the firefighting, first responder people all come in every other month, and they have an agenda for covering various topics, grants, how much moisture is in the biomass on the ground, what fire conditions are, how many fires have been reported over the previous 60 days. And John and I found it very interesting and educational as well. That, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not, John, but there was a grant opportunity we found out about that we are currently pursuing, and we'll discuss that in a bit further in our agenda. But I would like to continue to attend the Teller County Wildland Fire
Council.
Yes, meeting on it. The next one is in May, I believe. So Becky went, John and I were there, and so I think be fine. And Nick, that's right. Yeah, sorry, Nick went.
Would you let me know when the next one is coming up?
I will. I think it's May 17th, isn't it, John?
Yes. So I've got the agenda on me, and it says May 17th.
Yeah.
8:30 a.m.
A lot of great people there. They have a representative from the United States Forest Service. They have a representative from Colorado State Forestry Service. So everybody every agency that has any tangential or direct connection to wildland fire management and prevention and fighting, we're all there. So it's a great.
I'm sorry, is the Wildland Fire Council, was that the one that you started talking about that you and John attended?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other additions, more comments regarding recent developments in terms of, things that we've attended or have to do with our education program and updates.
I was just wondering, if, John, if there were if there was anything we were supposed to do to follow up with the school, or if there were any next steps or tasks that I can take on, or,
So, again, I had 6 minutes. What I left him, and I didn't know how big the group was going to be, but I left a stack of business cards. I left a stack of Paul's, one-page brief of who we are and what we do. And those were on the table. And so, again, left them an idea of who we are and an appreciation for anything they could do to promote the message. Way back when my kids were in school, I was a part of what was called SAC and then DAC. So it was the School Academic Accreditation Committee and then the District Academic Accreditation Committee. And from those experiences, and this was my opening to them, is I appreciate exactly how busy they are in just reaching academic standards. I mean, that's they're laser focused. So I gave them a gentle out of, this is what we are, this is who we are, and we appreciate anything they can do to help promote our message. So that's where that was it for me, Kelly. I didn't hear anything because I walked out of the room and they continued their business.
okay. But maybe I'll reach out to the middle school principal and see if they're willing to send, like Jackie Powell is, with their emails to this student body and the parents, some of Paul's tips and things like that to at least get started. I'll
Yep,
do
good
that.
thinking. Yes, please.
I'll do that.
Okay, let's move on. Speaking of a great segue, Paul's tips, we have that included in our agenda packet. And I don't know if y'all have had a chance to look at it, but it is a very timely topic, which is chipping. I understand there seems to be a couple of bodies of thought on chipping. I think the way we did it last September, where we were blowing the chips back up on people's yards, it really was just giving a chance for people to utilize that material, in ways that could be beneficial. One of the issues that I've learned about recently is the Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation has plans to put in a horse rescue facility on the front side of Red Butte Mountain, in between sort of the mountain and the highway. And Jesse told me that they were going to have need of a lot of biomass, chipped biomass. So, if we had a program for chipping and having that material available, they would take it. So that does kind of get rid of one of the issues of concern about, well, isn't that a fire hazard? So anyway, so I think this is timely, especially since we are looking at some chipper dates coming up. Any comments on this tip of the month that Paul has created? I like it.
I like it. Maybe just a restructure for get the QR code on the same page.
Yes, John, I'm not sure how.
And I know you see that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I don't know how it ended up sliding over a page, but when I send it out, it'll be as a one pager. And although we may be getting ahead of ourselves, I'll also put in an appeal for block captain volunteers on our distro list to say, hey, here's the tip of the month. And also, are you interested in serving as a block captain volunteer or otherwise volunteer? See if we can't get some feedback on that score.
David,
Do you-
did Jesse say, did Jesse indicate when they're gonna start working on that horse rescue thing?
He did not. I mean, I think it's something that is in the works. I don't know the timing for getting it put in place.
All right.
But I mean, I would say, given that part of the conversation was if we had an opportunity to get a grant that could purchase the town a chipper, would HGMFF, is that something that we could, make a grant request with them to pay for the amount of the match that would be required? And he said that was something that they would certainly give favorable consideration to. So, and that's what led him to tell me that they would have a need for materials on an ongoing basis. So that was the extent of that conversation. So Paul, do you need a formal approval for the monthly tip, or you feel like got it by consensus?
Yeah, if there's a consensus, I will get it out tomorrow.
I'm in favor.
Likewise.
Okay. Have there been any changes to our upcoming events calendar, John? I
Well,
forgot.
if you show it, I did add the chipper days, which have been confirmed.
Oh, they have. Excellent. Good news. When are
What's the
dates?
day?
Can you show that, Paul? I'm sorry, David?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
So Chief Murphy has confirmed June 10th and 11th. I'm sorry. Yes, June 10th and 11th and September 16th and 17th.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we have those.
Well,
have
should
those
we add
dates.
that to the tip? Like, we'll look for more information on Green Mountain Falls Chipper Days, June 10th and 11th.
I
Yes,
think we should.
and so
Go
here's, go ahead, David.
No, go ahead, John.
In the discussions with Chief Murphy, he wants us to have a cadre of volunteers, but not too many volunteers. So I had feedback that, there was almost too many. And so we need, and so my invitation to him was, yes, let's work together. You tell me what's the right number. But then we need to be available to, have the list to say, okay, we need whatever the magic number is, 3, over the course of these, each day of the total of 4. So.
Right. No, I was thinking more along the lines of engaging property owners. Like this
Yes.
month, we tell them, look for more information. In May, we give them the link to sign up. We do a little marketing campaign, build it for a couple months to get as many property owners to participate just by, stacking their slash in front of their homes.
Yes, I agree. So with this tip of the month, tickling them with the knowledge that yes, chipper days will be on those dates. Look for more information and specifics to come, and then Becky will be instrumental in getting the flyer created like last year's.
Okay.
I do think the issue that John was raising, though, Chief Murphy, learned a lot last September, and he learned, for example, that there are some streets in Green Mountain Falls that are difficult to maneuver, pulling the chipper around behind the truck. And so given there are those difficult streets, he said that in a lot of times they would have to maneuver, but once they got up on the street, there wasn't much biomass really to do anything with. So he wanted us to refine our approach a bit in communicating with people to say, have a plan for how we're going to handle these difficult streets and get people to, if they're going to participate, really participate, and try to get, a volume of material out on the street that's makes it worth the while to maneuver up the street. So those are things that we can work out between now and the first chipper day with Chief Murphy. I think we need to coordinate with him and get, refine the input from him in terms of what he's willing to do and, based on his learning from last year. Isn't that right, John?
Yes. On my own street, apparently they shuttled material down because I'm at a dead end. So I think, yes, I think those are great learnings that we need to, this, one thing, again, we'll have to, have some coordination meetings with him, but working through how do we preview the piles that are there, maybe on June 9th or June 8th, so that it's like, okay, there's a better idea of where the big piles are and the big piles aren't. And
Right.
Would it be easier for those areas that are difficult to get to if those people brought them down to where the horse rescue place is going to be?
Well, I think there are some solutions. I don't know that we want to try and develop the solutions right here and now, but that's a good idea, Kelly. That is a possibility. But again, I think we need to work with Chief Murphy and Becky, for that matter, to determine, what would be our, our alternative if it's too difficult to maneuver up the street. Right, John?
I agree. Yep. Agree. Yeah. And take last year's learnings and apply them to this year. And
But going back, Paul, to your comment that you want to start building awareness in the community that we're going to have not one, but two more chipper weekends this year. Because I think, we kind of started, it all came up and got developed at sort of the last minute. I think if we start getting the word out now, I think we'll have more people that will get on board and will want to be part of this. And we also need to keep in mind that the fire district encompasses Cascade and Chipeta Park. So our communications really need to extend out to those two communities as well. And that was one of the requests that Chief Murphy made to me last year, was that we promoted in those communities as well. So I had a contact at Chipeta Park where they actually distributed our flyer with their mailing list to all of their residents. And that's how we wound up getting people in those communities to participate. But I feel like if we do that again, we're going to have a whole lot more people participate. So
I have a question. I heard on the news, on KRDO, I think it was Channel 13, that Pueblo West has push notifications, I want to say for fire. And I don't know if any of you have little ones. I've got Jackson at home, so he's in school, and on snow days, the push notifications go out to all the parents or grandparents or guardians to let you know that there's no school that day because of snow or whatever. And we could do that here if anybody knew how to do that or who to contact to get that done.
you mean, I'm confused. You mean about snow days or?
No, for fire. If there was an emergency that we had to get to everybody right away, if we had their phone numbers and we had the ability to do push notifications like the school does, if there's a snow day, that it calls all the parents and it's the same message to every parent, well, this would be the same message to every resident via phone.
I think that already exists with peak alerts.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good.
That's Everbridge.
Okay,
Yeah, so Everbridge, works on this, they call them polygons, but it's all the cell phones are that are geolocated within the polygon to say you're at risk. That's who gets
Perfect.
the notification.
perfect.
And if I can just take a small deviation, because that's one of the things that was valuable that David and I learned at the Wildland Fire Council was that, there's still some complaints about the conversion from Nixle to Everbridge, because Everbridge was far more comprehensive in the breadth of distribution. But unfortunately, it tied up the cell towers to the extent that 911 calls couldn't be received. So this Everbridge is laser focused to what, again, they call them polygons. The specific area that needs to be evacuated or notified or whatever needs to be communicated. And so it's not as broad, but it is getting to the people that need to hear it without, clogging the lines. So thank you for allowing me to take that deviation.
Yeah, that's great, John. Thank you for that additional
I-
information.
I had a question, so Chipper Days extends to Cascade and Chipeta Park, is that it?
Yes, they're
Okay.
part of the fire district. And since
For
Chief
those,
Murphy,
so those 2 days, you cover all that area, Green Mountain, Chipeta, and Cascade.
we did
Okay.
last year in September. Yeah.
What?
I mean, it depends. It may be that depends on, I mean, literally, it depends on how many people sign up and what the volume of material there is as to whether or not they can get to it. But if we do it in June and again in September, we always have a shot to get it in September. That's one of the reasons that we would like to, we'll talk about this in a minute, but this grant that's available, it'd be nice if we could buy our own chipper, and then we're not really at the mercy of, the availability of it from Teller County and, the ability to Chief Murphy to coordinate everything. For Green Mountain Falls, we would have our own piece of equipment that we could be assured of more frequency or more timeliness or whatever. But yes, there's a lot of logistics issues when we start reaching out to Chipeta and Cascade. But as Chief Murphy said, that's his district. He's doing the deal. He wants it extended to everybody. Okay. March communication, there's our monthly tip. Upcoming events calendar we've talked about. Is our database growing any, Paul, or kind of where are we on that?
We are at 32 and we had some growth in February, but none in March.
Okay. Is there something more we can do to get people to
So the
be-
February push was probably due to the fact that, it went out on the request went out via the mayor's newsletter and also the newsletter from Church of the Wildwood.
Yeah.
So it's, after this notification about right-of-way letters, maybe another reminder and get another push and see if we can get another bump.
Yeah, we really need to get people to, start participating in those kinds of things so that we can communicate and let people know what's happening and, they can be informed. I know people are reluctant to give out their information, but, we just need to continue to really push that aspect of what we're doing and convince people that it's for their own welfare and to be informed as citizens.
Well, I think that's going to be a lot easier to get that information once we have block ambassadors in place going door to door, talking to their neighbors.
Mhm. I agree. agree. Okay, so Paul, under new business, item A is sort of a project you're working on. Could you update us on that?
Sure, David. So I've been working with the other committees in the town, Parks, Recreations, Trails, as well as the Planning Commission, to provide input to the town for the capital improvements plan and the town strategic plan. This is something I kind of do in my day job, is, facilitate strategic planning. And so what the other committees are considering, or in some cases have signed up for, is to take about an hour and a half and have a facilitated meeting where each committee provides input into capital improvements, where we should spend our scarce resources, and strategic planning. I'll just give you one, well, maybe a couple examples. So we might say, in terms of capital improvements, that the town's top priority needs to be, accessibility on isolated roads like Hondo. Or we might say that, for example, something I work with, directly, the current town strategic plan has a line item of providing a living with wildfire or wildland urban interface brochures. Well, we've gone away from the brochure concept, a single document, to the monthly tip approach. So we're still doing public education, but we're doing it a little differently. This process would be a chance to update the strategic plan to reflect what we're actually doing, as well as to communicate to the town board what we aim to do. So the process would be, we meet as a committee. Prior to that, I or David could send out the template for what inputs you'd be asked to provide, like what your proposed priorities would be for capital improvements or strategic plans. Then we could meet in April, discuss that input, and then David would carry that input forward to a collective meeting of all the committee chairs, and ultimately to the town board. So again, that would take about 90 minutes, next meeting in April. And this is probably something, at least with the other committees, something that requires a vote. So that's kind of my pitch.
So 90 minutes assumes that we've done our homework in advance. Is that correct?
Right. I can share, David, if you'd like, the templates that I would be asking folks to think about.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do that.
Right. Yeah, right now sharing's disabled, but I'm sure you can.
One, multiple. Okay.
And Paul, I thought isn't the due date coming up very quickly?
Well, yes and no. Our goal was to contact all of the committees in March, which we're doing, and then the input would ultimately be fed through the committee chairs into the town board in July. So we have time.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was a much more compressed timeline. Okay.
So you should be seeing right now an item called workshop objectives, and this would just be the proposed agenda that I'd asked to follow, where basically we begin by identifying, celebrating best practices. What are we already doing well that we could continue to do? And then we would take about an hour and review capital improvements, provide refinement for strategic plans and goals, and then prioritize the improvements that we're recommending. In terms of what the specific plan would be working with, the Excel spreadsheet that you're seeing now is the town strategic assessment, basically our strategic plan. And as I mentioned, for example, item 2.1 is about wildfire public education brochures. That's basically our tip of the month. And this would be an example of where I would recommend, well, David, I think we should call this a monthly tip as opposed to a brochure because that's a little bit more
Mhm.
accurate. That would
Mhm.
be an example of something that we would do.
Mhm.
That's the strategic assessment. And then in terms of capital improvements, this is the town's current capital improvement program. And you'll note that on the right-hand side of the screen there is an opportunity for you to vote up to 5 times about the 5 things you think are most important for the town's capital improvements. It doesn't have to be fire mitigation, although that's obviously our focus and interest. But this is a chance for us again to provide input. If there's an item that you think is in the capital improvements program but should not be, or vice versa, that isn't in there but should be, there's also a tab where you can provide recommended additions and deletions. And the process would be, I would ask David if I could send this out to the entire committee. And if so, you would do your homework ahead of time, recommending capital improvements, ranked 1 through 5, additions or deletions if you have any refinements that you'd want to make to the strategic plan. And here I think it does make sense for us to focus our efforts solely on fire mitigation, so we're not, telling the planning commission how they should run their business. But this would be a chance to reflect before the meeting, provide your inputs during the meeting, and then David would carry those inputs forward to his colleagues on other committee chairs.
I think it would be great if you could go ahead and distribute the templates
Okay.
to the committee.
Yeah.
And if you want the work to be done and sent back in to you for compilation prior to our meeting, we can do that, or, we can just show up at our next meeting with the thought that we're going to, take an hour and a half in our agenda to go over this. I'm open to whatever you think is the most effective and time efficient way of going about this.
Yeah, and you raise a great point. So in terms of time efficient, sending the inputs to me in advance would be more time efficient. There might be a little less dialogue and discussion, so it's maybe a trade-off between those competing goods. Less time, but also less discussion if I collate it. More time, but perhaps more discussion if we just show up and discuss it individually. Either
Yes.
way, it's fine, but I think that's kind of the trade-off.
Okay, well, I will leave it up to you as to how you want to manage this project through from now until we have our next meeting. I was just throwing out some suggestions there, but
Well, why
you
don't I
just
send it out?
what you want to do and just get it out to us so we can get started.
Okay, well, why don't I'll send it out and ask that everybody provides their inputs about a week before our meeting. And if so, then great, I'll have it all collated and I'll present it for review. And if not, then we can do some work in the meeting. So that's maybe an incentive to do your homework, to make this
Yep.
shorter. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, is we need to do our homework. Okay, any questions on that? Well, good job explaining that, Paul. Back to our agenda. Can everybody see the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so as I've mentioned a couple of times in our discussions here, when we attended the Teller Wildland Management Council meeting, we learned about a grant that is called the Wildfire. Oh, I had it written down somewhere, now I don't have it. You remember what that stands for, John? It's for Well, I'll just tell you, the state has just made these funds available. It's $9.5 million. It's for local government. That would be, you know, any municipality or fire district or, you know, a local entity. To make funds available for either mitigation, education, or equipment related to wildland fire. It was Becky's recommendation that we apply for this grant. The deadline is April 5th. So we are currently in process with that application. John took, I think there was A through M in terms of, you know, sections that needed to be completed. John took the second half of those. I took the first half. There's some information that we're going to need, some mapping and that sort of thing. I turned that over to Becky. I don't know if y'all know or not. Becky's mother died last week, so she's out. Mayor Dixon asked me over the weekend to share with him what we had already had done, which I have done. So we're trying to get that grant pulled together. But Becky's thought was that we would apply for a grant to purchase a chipper for the town of Green Mountain Falls. These grants are 50-50. They're 50% state funded, 50% matched by the local government. Unless you are in a certain economic zone where, you know, by the demographics of where your town is, you might be deemed to be eligible for a 75% grant from the state and a 25% match. That's where the mapping comes in. I've tried to figure out how to do the map. I cannot figure it out. So anyway, we're going to have to submit that map, especially if we're in the economic zone that allows us to qualify for a 75% grant. So that's in the works. As I said earlier, I talked to Jesse Stroop with Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation to see if they might participate, or that we could apply for a grant with them, which would provide the match rather than the match falling on our town, which he said they would certainly look favorably on. So I think that, you know, this is an opportunity for us to get a nice, you know, chipper that's to the same spec as the Teller County chipper. So it's really heavy duty, handles 6-inch, you know, diameter trunks, and it would give us more control over our own work. So that is in the works. John, you and I hadn't talked about this in a week or so. So I guess you're still making progress on your part.
Yes, indeed. And
Okay.
David, also got some rethinking. You know, there's been multiple experiences here. You know, one deals with the No Flow Co. Experience, where they do very little chipping. They turn almost everything they can into firewood, and they go down to what they described as, you know, arm diameter. Of course, people don't like to burn things quite that small, but that's the way they successfully reduce biomass so significantly. Then there was a very serendipitous conversation with Teresa Allen. She's the music director at Church in the Wildwood, and she's also the Pikes Peak Mountain Estates or the what do you call it? The neighborhood association president for that estates. And that community exists of 27 lots of 2.5 acres each. And they do all their own fire mitigation. They're in their third year, and they rent a chipper. And that's something, I mentioned to you, David, certainly those things are available, and that's how they get their chipping done. And they also have a way that they've trained their residents, and they go through a part of CERT training with this guy named Andre Mouton. Here's the reason I'm bringing this up, David, is, I'm not saying the chipper is a bad thing. And the information about how, the horse rescue would put demand for chips, that's new information. So I didn't know about that until tonight. But outside of that demand, I feel like we could make an argument in terms of building capacity, which is part of what this grant is for, that gets us more training, building up a cadre of volunteers with the right skills, as opposed to the weight on the chipper. And I realize this is all coming fast and furious in terms of these exposures to other groups that are successfully mitigating. But anyway, that's sort of my thoughts and direction at this point. And if it's too much too soon, I respect that. Maybe we need to just make it additive to the grant versus redirecting too much.
Well, I think I as I was working through the grant, I mean, you could put other items in. So, for example, the maintenance of the chipper and the manpower needed to run it, and education. And so I think it could be said that education could be part of the grant funding. I don't know specifically what you're talking about, but I mean it could be added.
All right.
Well, and could part of the matching be that we would rent it out to other communities like this group?
It could be. It becomes very complicated because then you have to start building a financial model that shows how much money you're going to make. And I would
yeah, that's true.
Not get into all that, even though it's possible we could. I just think it complicates the grant application.
I didn't think of that. You're right.
David, could I chime in for a minute?
Yes.
Okay, so on basically the manpower estimates, I'm going to put in 4 days a year, 8 hours per day. We're going to have to get the machine info. Becky was supposed to send that to me. She's not. What's happening, by the way, in the background, Becky is basically directing / coaching Bo and I to try to get the items that have deadlines, try to keep them going. I've got a list of 13 right now. The grant application says you can go into the Colorado Forest Atlas and draw the boundary. I'm going to ask for someone to do that. Because
who are you going to ask?
Shape files.
Who are you going to ask to do?
I'm asking the Fire Mitigation Committee to do that.
So, and David, I have gained access to the Forest Atlas. So
have you attempted to draw the maps?
Yeah.
Have you attempted to draw the maps?
I have not, because this is the first I'm hearing the request. So I was looking at the maps, but
I have attempted to draw the maps and I cannot figure out how to do it.
Okay.
So
okay, the reason I asked that because our shape files were
that
done in AutoCAD. And
sorry, what?
Our shape files were done in AutoCAD, and we don't have AutoCAD. Pardon me. And so if we're trying to find someone that's got AutoCAD, I'm concerned that if we don't get someone in there to go draw these, we're going to miss the April 5th deadline.
Well, the reason I had, Becky had said that she knew somebody who knew how to, do these maps. That's why I had
And,
As
you know, if
per-
Becky was here, that may be something she may be able to work, but I'm not anticipating her. I'm really not anticipating her back until after the board meeting.
Mhm.
And then really not even full strength and probably until about the 10th. You know, they have the state things and the service is actually next week. So I'm not into, she's going to be out on bereavement, probably at least through most of next week.
Okay. Well, the maps are a requirement for submission to the of the grant application. I mean,
Mhm.
they make that very clear that
Mhm.
you have to submit the map.
Yeah, yeah, I see that. I got your application up. I see that.
I think on the website, as I recall, when I was in there looking at it, there was a phone number that, you know, for assistance. And I guess I can get back on the website and call that number and see if I can get some help to draw the map. But I can never figure out how to get the various layers and get it to work.
Okay, they do have instructions on, and they even say, click here to view step-by-step images of the process.
Well, I went through those
Try it.
things that either I am very incompetent or you know, it's difficult.
We just need a middle schooler to show us how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the ask now, because like I say, Becky's trying to basically remote coach and direct Bo and I on all these other items.
Okay.
I think I can get the info for the labor, and we can probably throw in $100 or so for the PPE.
Okay.
So I'm not too terribly concerned about that. But yeah, trying to get in and draw the map right at this point in time is gonna, with the with all the other items we're trying to keep up with, is maybe a little bit of a bridge too far.
Okay. We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
I guess if we can't do the map or can't figure it out or can't get help to do it or whatever, we just won't be putting the grant application in, right?
I would say, you know, before you throw your hands up on that, there may be might be able to pull on some help from some of the PRT folks.
Okay.
So before you throw your hands up, let's chat with them.
All right. Very good. Are you any good at mapping, Paul?
Is it the GIS database?
Well, this is a Colorado State Forestry Service online application. I mean, and so you're basically using their portal to structure this map of the work area.
Yeah.
So you know, I'll try to get in touch with somebody at the state and see if they can help me walk me through it.
Yeah, I played briefly with the mapping software in the town hall, and it is dense, really powerful, but not intuitive.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm finding with the Colorado State Forestry Service. It's you follow the instructions, but I was not able to get an output that was what was required.
Right.
And this is who the grant is through, is the Forestry Service?
Yes. Okay,
Yeah, and David, for the board meeting, I think about all we need to do is just say, hey, here's this grant available from the Forest Service. We can put up the machine info because what they've went out and got quoted supposedly has got maybe a 3-year maintenance agreement along with it.
right, yeah.
And then also, did Historic Green Mountain Falls commit in writing, or is it just a verbal?
It's a verbal.
I wonder if we could get something in writing in time for the board meeting.
I doubt it. I mean, they're not going to give you I mean, this is Jesse just saying he knows that Green Mountain Falls is a priority and wildfire is, one of their major issues, and he does not feel that it would be a problem. And
Okay.
whether
We'll
he'll put
just
that in
wanna-
writing or not, I really doubt it.
Yeah, we'll just want to make sure that that's brought up. Say we got a verbal.
Right.
So I don't think the board's going to have any issue with this whatsoever. So
Okay. I mean, this is a grant that has a term of 3 years. So you're going to buy this piece of equipment all I'm saying is within that 3-year period, you're going to be able to get the grant from Green Mountain Falls Foundation. I feel certain.
yeah. So yeah, and in addition, if worse comes to worse, that's an NRE expense. So
Whatever that is.
non-recurring.
No, okay. All right. Okay, well, we'll just continue to plug ahead on that. All right, let's move to.
I'm going to bail out on you unless you
Okay.
got anything else.
Nope, that's it.
It's been a busy week, so
Yeah.
we'll see you.
All right, thanks, Todd. Appreciate you attending the meeting.
Okay.
Let's have a vote on the grant application while we're together. That just so we just have the formality of the committee recommending this application to the Board of Trustees for their approval. Do I have a motion or do we feel like there's more discussion required before we get into a motion here on this grant?
So David, to clarify, we need a motion to recommend, the FMAC recommends to the board to move forward on this grant with both chipper and educational priorities addressed. Is that?
Yeah.
I would second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Kelly, are you in favor?
Aye. Sorry.
Okay. Any opposed? No. All right. Moving forward here, formation of subcommittees, block captains. Kelly and I talked to Mark Morales. I think I put you in touch with Mark. Paul, did y'all have a chance to meet or talk?
No, I replied to the email, but I haven't heard back yet, so I can follow up.
Okay, because he was interested in, at first I thought he was interested in being on the committee, but he didn't want to do that. He wanted to ease into it.
Right.
He was interested in the block captain aspect. And so I just told him that you were heading that up, and that, that's why I made the introduction to you.
Right.
Now they're in Texas right now on spring break. He's with my son and my grandson down at his parents' house, but you should be able to still reach him by email or phone, I would think.
Okay, I'll follow up.
And if you don't have both of those, let me know and I'll give it to you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I think I have them in that email from David, but I'll check and make sure.
Okay. What can we do to get the word out that we are, first of all, people want to know, well, what do I have to do as a block captain? That sounds like a big job. And I mean, that's one of the, the discussions I had with Mark was trying to get him to understand what the job really is. You know, I think if we're gonna sort of put a blanket notice out there that we're looking for block captains, it would be helpful to say to people, what does that mean? What is it that we want a block captain to do?
Yeah, David, that's on me. I'll put together a job description for draft for our next meeting and see if we can't just provide, general duties and description of expectations.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, John, you going back a little bit to this no flow code, they had some sort of assessment program. Did you learn more about that? Where you take a picture of your house?
Well, that was sort of, that was part of his education process for that symposium, was he was, showing pictures up to the audience and having people identify needs, areas of improvement, et cetera. Their assessment, like, again, we're talking, our situations are very different. In that, we have a high density of old structures. And so Green Mountain Falls vulnerability is extremely high because of that factor. In addition, and then we also have high risk, which is the propensity for fire because of all the fuel. Their topography is, very different. So when they were looking at doing their assessments, which was the kinds of things that, Carolyn and I saw when we went out into the field, was focused on ladder fuels, going back to this 1 minute, 10 minute, 1 hour fuel concept, reducing all the high time fuels, as getting them off the ground. That's his pickup sticks, concept. So assessment for them is very different and much simpler. Where they did talk a lot about assessment was with, there aren't a lot of structures, but the structures they were looking at, what's called ember wash. So in the event that the fires do get up into the trees and start blowing embers for, a quarter mile or more, then the kinds of assessment like what, Dan Batten offered when he came to my property was, where is the still air where those embers are going to fall at the, when the ember wash comes over you. And that's where Dan, added so much value with his assessments. Was he was, when he came to my property, he was showing me all sorts of nooks and crannies where, it's the still air. It's where the embers are gonna settle. And it's an eye opener.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to, that's what you're looking towards, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, even things like cleaning out the outside dryer vents and things where the embers could get up in there and set the house, you don't think about that. I
Yes.
don't think about things
Exactly.
like that.
Okay. I was just hoping that they had sort of a magic bullet.
They don't, but I think there had it would be valuable to hear from Dan in terms of how he would recommend that we move forward in finding additional assessment capacity, because he knows what it takes to do an assessment. He knows the kind of training and expertise that's associated with that. He could help us with identifying how that capacity, his recommendation for how that capacity could be expanded.
Well, when he came out to my property, he had Byron with him from Hope Restored. The two of them did the assessment.
And that was the same with me, but I don't know that we can rely on Byron for our capacity.
Well, Byron's gone completely dark. I've attempted to contact him several times by email and phone and
Too.
gotten zero response. So I don't feel comfortable with Byron being a solution when he is not communicative.
John, could I just jump in for a minute? Do you remember this form that everybody was filled out at the end of the meeting? This, it was Wildland Urban Interface Fire Mitigation Program, but it had to do with property assessment. Everybody was filling it out and I'm not sure where it went. I didn't fill one out, but I did take the form back with me.
So he was going to scan all those and then, call the people to see if they followed through. So the majority of that was an action plan. What is your own personal assessment, in terms of creating an action plan versus it coming from the outside. So he was asking each property owner to, make an assessment, create an action plan, and see how they were doing with follow-up.
I would lean towards having something that gives people the ability to do a self-guided assessment. Where maybe they take pictures and, have a form that they could fill out and submit that, or something that gives people the ability to not depend on sending an expert to do this. If that's possible. It may not be possible.
Well, that was what, before the meeting, everybody, Don asked everybody to take a picture of their stand away from their house in the driveway and take a picture. And then he threw up, I don't know if he did all of the ones, but I mean, all of the houses he had they had driveways and he was kind of joking because everybody had done such a good job of mitigating that there was very little that he could point to and say, well, you need to do that or you need to do that. But that was sort of that was kind of where he was telling people, pointing out visually. And for their next assignment, they're supposed to take a picture, do the same and take a picture of their neighbors. And see if and submit that. I had some issues there with privacy, but anyway, what the heck. But I think that the purpose of that was to, just visually show people, oh, you've got dead wood or something over there, or you're stacking patio furniture under the deck or wood under the deck, that sort of thing.
If the trouble with that is when you have neighbors who refuse to do the mitigation, who don't live here, they're just here, they're summer people.
That
They
was
don't care.
that's a whole nother issue that came up, and
That's what I'm dealing with. They don't even want to hear it.
Yeah, and that's something that I believe that this committee, we're gonna have to face that. But that was also discussed. That's just a whole nother ballgame altogether.
Yep.
Well, at some point, our town government, I should say, is going to have to get more proactive in enforcing its laws. Until we get to the point where we're willing to enforce our nuisance tree law, then I think we'd be able to start tackling things like, fire hazards next to people's houses. But right now there's apparently no appetite for, requiring people to cut trees as is in our town code. So I don't know how we enforce getting people to do something more than that.
Well, see that, yeah, requiring people to cut trees, but it's so expensive to do all of that, to have them cut trees. And that was part of Flowco's, whatever that is, posse. That was part of their thing was they recognized that it is expensive. People can't do it on their own. And that's why, John, am I right? I don't mean to jump in like this, but I just,
No, absolutely. You're spot on. There's a, given the size of their lots, there was a big economic issue that was driving their concept of neighbor helping neighbor.
Well, we're getting off into an area that we've tried to come up with ways to mitigate the cost. But again, we have been rebuffed by the town government from pursuing those other avenues by having volunteers do that kind of work. The town just really will not allow it. So, I keep running up against a brick wall on how to well, first of all, the town, it's within the town's power by its municipal code to require that nuisance trees be removed. The town could go in and cut them and, charge some nominal fee to do that, but they are unwilling to do that. And having volunteers on, a crew is not acceptable to the town either. So
what you're saying is that all this that we've been talking about with Flowco and everything doesn't have a chance because we can't do it because of the town, the
Well,
board's risk averse. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, pretty much.
I'm going to disagree. Under the auspices of the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee, but not as individual citizens.
I agree, John, with what you just said. It can't, if we had a group of citizens who said, I'm willing to come and help you out as neighbor to neighbor, that would be great, but it can't be something that's sponsored or led by the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee. Is that what you're saying?
We're saying yes, the same thing. It has to be neighbors helping neighbors.
Yeah.
And it can't be a town organized event. Yes.
Right.
When you get into the chainsaws,
yeah,
we can still pick up sticks.
Yeah.
David, let's get back to your assessment because, I see this as building capacity for how assessments are going to be done.
Yep.
Expertise, a replacement or additive for Dan. I hear you wanting something different. You want, I believe, self-assessment, some sort of a self-guided checklist assessment tool that allows people to, look at their properties and that's got value.
I'm trying to find a solution to this that is, it's not that I want people to do their own assessment. But if we are not able to find a solution to having some expert go and do it, I don't know what else we can do. So
do you mind if I write Dan an email and just ask him how he would guide us to build?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Capacity.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that would be fine. No,
Yeah, because
I'm not-
maybe we could just design a form with all the things he says to check. The people could go through their property and look and see if that's an issue on their property and just check it off.
Well, I think he's going to, I don't think that's going to be his approach, but I think he's a great expert that help us, get to where we need to go.
He
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, that's fine, John. Let's, yes, please. Thank you. Okay, does anybody have any other information on grants other than the one we discussed? Okay. I do not. So we have no reports, no correspondence. I think we're at the end of our agenda. Thanks everybody for all the great work you're doing. I really think we're beginning to get some traction in terms of our involvement with other organizations, developing a network, gaining knowledge, to help inform our own decisions. I think all that's very helpful. I think we've got a great calendar of planned activities that's, I think, becoming better as a result of all these other things that we're doing. So I think we have a lot to look at and be proud of, and pat ourselves on the back to some degree and say, I think we're headed in the right direction. So it's not without a lot of hard work and dedication on you all part, and I greatly appreciate everything that you're doing. So keep up the good work. Unless there are other comments, we will adjourn for this evening. One thing before I forget, our next meeting, I think we would like to have 1 week earlier than it would normally fall, which let's see here. That would mean that would normally fall on April 24th. But because of conflicts that Paul has, we were talking about moving it to the week prior. Isn't that right, Paul?
Yes, I'll be traveling on the 24th, unfortunately.
And since we need to have this next meeting for the thing that Paul's doing, it needs to be that week before. So would the 17th work?
Does for me.
Yes.
Works.
Let's schedule our meeting for the 17th, and Paul, you'll be getting out the materials that we need to do our homework on and get that back to you. So you'll need to work out kind of what that needs to look like.
Yes.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Great work.
What time are we adjourning? What time is it?
It is, I have
8:25.
8:25, yes.
Great. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Good night, everybody.
Night all.
Aye.
Night.
Bye.